Today's lesson is going to be on touring and merch. Listen, touring for you managers is probably the most important business for an artist. It's where the bread and butter is, where you're going to make most of your money. It's been like that probably since the beginning of time, especially when we had those traditional royalty type deals that the labels had, was giving out big advances, and artists really didn't see money from record sales. So touring is how they had to get it. And it's still like that. It's still the bread and butter. So it's important to make sure that you have correct touring strategy and understand how to enter that world, because it is a business. And outside of touring, on the merch front, the ancillaries, it's also an extra way of gaining income while you have people in the building that's there for your artists. So definitely have to, as a manager, tune into, and pay attention to touring and try to do it the right way. And I'm going to give you guys gems on my touring strategy from my time in the business, whether it's the ups and the downs and how I got through. So as we're talking about touring and getting out there, you want to make sure you build you a dope team. It's a couple different elements that you have to have a successful show. The better the show, from the artist's standpoint and point of view, the more likely you can gain fans and hopefully, be doing this till you 50, 60 years old, like some of these old bands that you see. Sometimes it starts with the artist first, but I'm gonna lean back into that. Let's talk about the support staff, because that's also important. Earlier in the previous lesson, I talked about the road manager and the tour manager and the production manager. Those are key elements to a support team to be built. Now, mind you, when I was in the beginning, I was pretty much all those things. But like I said, the roles of those guys makes touring seems seamless, and it makes it flow easy for the artist. Now, the road manager, which I told you guys, kind of moves the artist around from A to B. With the tour manager, making sure everything is set up at these venues and everything is flawless in that area. Now, production manager is super important, and even myself, that's probably the first, as I was doing those other roles, production manager, I wasn't skilled in that level, but they helped me bring a lot of different elements to life, and they kind of oversee, like I said in previous lessons, everything that's going on inside of the house when it comes to the technical production, audio side of things. So they oversee that, and as you guys probably see, or if you haven't seen, sometimes, if you give your audience a great experience when it comes to content on the screen, maybe set stage design, how it sounds in the venue, a production manager, getting a dope production manager that has experience in that world, to help bring that together can only enhance what the artist is doing on stage. So when we're talking about touring with your artist, we want to make sure that your artist has a grasp and understanding of putting on a great show. Some of them is natural. I've been blessed to have a lot that, you turn on the lights, you give them a microphone, and it's showtime, and it comes effortlessly. But for some, they may need training. They may need support. I've had artists where you have to think about, choreographers to help them move and maneuver on stage. As a manager, you want to make sure that your artist understands about connecting to the fans, not being afraid to get out of their skin and loosen up, run around, jump up and down, because at the end of the day, it's about that connectivity. With the crowd. So, if you don't understand how to do that, there are choreographers that you can help with that. I'm always a firm believer of making sure that the artist also sounds good when he's projecting himself on stage, on the microphone. Most of my artists, I suggest them going to vocal coaches. I don't care if they're a rapper or a singer, vocal coaching is very important. I think it's worthwhile because breathing techniques is very important. If you're going to be on stage for 2 hours, your artist's going to be on stage for 2 hours, it only can enhance them to learn different skills. And especially if you're touring, year round. The average tour be 40 to 60 cities. Your artist is going to be using their voice over and over. So going to a vocal coach and understanding what to do to train your voice, different remedies to where as though they could project themselves and be efficient every night and every day is very much so important. I know a lot of managers don't think that way, but it's definitely one of the things in my arsenal that is a must. That is a must. And I find that, some of my artists that's rappers be like, I don't need no vocal coach, I don't sing, but once they go through these techniques, they see how it only enhances their skill set, especially in breathing. Because that, like breathing alone, if you're putting on a show and you're really giving your all and exerting yourself for an hour or more at a time, breathing techniques and performing is a huge element on putting on a good show. So outside of, the vocal techniques and making sure your artist choreography is on point and then moving and delivering the message, now you got to think about, building the show out. You got to think about the song selection, how it goes, how much of a song you're going to play. My strategy is ebbs and flows. I roller coaster. I like taking the audience on a roller coaster ride. So most of the time you're going to hear, and I was challenged with this from the very jump from Wayne. Like I said, I was manager, DJ, assistant. So I was putting all the show together, the set list, the playlist, and in the breaks and setting up, ideas of what you can say to address the crowd during the breaks, to keep them engaged. But I think that the roller coaster is how I kind of describe my strategy on a show. For as the music, you start off high with a high tempo, high energy song to come out the door with a gate, and then you take them through ebbs and flows, because some artists have songs that, that might be those album cuts that may be deep. You take them down, you bring them back up, and you end on a high note, with a lot of energy. And usually that's with a lot of energy or whatever your current hit single is that may be the hottest in your repertoire. So roller coaster effect for us putting a strategy together for us. The music has always did me well. It's the same thing that I kind of stretched down to every other artist and every other client that came after me that I started with Wayne. And it's proven to be, a standard and great when it comes to putting on a good show. That's one thing I have been blessed with artists that know how to do that. Okay, so now that we have, the show together, all the elements production-wise, what your artists should do, now we got to talk about tour strategy. And this is something that I had to learn, and I'm going to use this word, and I want to spell it out and yell it out. All money ain't good money. All money ain't good money. When I started out, that's all I knew. All I knew was just take the bag and whatever promoter offering and try to get you, try to get the most show money to get more money for an artist, but it wasn't really with any strategy, and I did that for a minute, and it was the chitlin circuit, what we call it in the business. So at this point, and when I started with Wayne, he was regional, so we were just hitting up the local states and everywhere where he was popping, and just going back and back and back and really not putting no strategy. The strategy was try to get the most money. Try to get the most money out of these promoters as we putting out music and trying to get hot and see how much of a guarantee that we have. But that's not how you set up great touring, and that's why you see a lot of these artists that you may love and people wonder those, damn, Drake and Wayne and Kanye and Nicki and G-Eazy, how are they all amphitheater and arena type artists? Is because we have strategy. We have a great guy who's my partner named Sean G, who came aboard when we partnered up with our company and kind of taught me touring strategy. We were on that chitlin circuit and making tons of money, man. We had got to a point, that was that mixtape Weezy days, and we was putting out, he was hot in the streets, so we was making $50,000 in the clubs, you know what I'm saying? What he told me was like, you have to sell hard tickets. You have to look at touring a different way. You got to get in venues where you could track your success, because the touring business and tour model, once you grow and you want to grow to an arena, is all about, a history of ticket sales so that promoters could track your success and offer you more. You get into those big rooms. So it's strategy behind it. So, and at the time, I can remember Wayne's first tour, major tour in a ticketed venue, right? we're making 50 grand a month, and Chris Brown had just came out. He had the up close and personal tour, and it came to me. My partner came to me and was like, "Listen, we should do this tour." He was like, but he's gonna be in the slot in front of Wayne's gonna be in a slot in front of who was in front of us? It was Neo, and I think it was either Dipset or Franchise Boys. One of them two was in front of them. Wayne was in front of them. Like Wayne had 15 minutes, right? And we're making maybe like $10,000 on that tour. That's what they offered us. And mind you, we making 50 grand in the club a night. And when I first told Wayne that, he was like, "What? 50? You want me to go take 10 bands and I'm making 50?" I was like, "Listen, if we want to get to these arena type level, we might have to take a step back and sacrifice the bag in order to put strategy around touring and touring in the right way, touring in the right venues." You know what I'm saying? Mind you, his white fans, which I knew he was gaining, wasn't coming to the clubs that we were playing in and around the country. So, we had to go to a place where everybody could come to and feel inclusive and comfortable to come to, So, so we took that. Listen, we took that cut. He killed them 15 minutes. When I say 15 minutes, it was pressure to come at them because, we had hits then. Everybody I named that was on that bill, he was already 5-6 years in the game before them. They were all new, even though Chris was hot, and this is his first real tour, with the first records that he had. And we'll come back and do Gimme That with Chris. Like, he'll do his 15 minutes, and we'll come back and do the Gimme That record with Chris on Chris' set. But that one tour allowed us, and who was Al Heyman at the time, who put that tour on, to see Wayne on stage and understand the performer that Wayne was, you know what I'm saying? And from that moment, Al took a shot with Wayne, gave him a touring deal, and the rest was history. And the rest was history. And we went from 10,000 to making way more than 50,000 in the venues, because we shot up there. Because right after that, we put out maybe Carter 3. It was timing was perfect. So we didn't even, because it's usually steps you take in touring business, you know what I'm saying, especially in the hard ticket venues. And as an artist, you strategize based off of where you're at, the type of music, and playing the right venues, you know what I'm saying? And there's people that help you with that. We'll talk about promoters and agents in a second, but I'm just gonna sum this one thought up. We actually skipped a step with Wayne because we did that the right way, and we dropped a ginormous album. We was able to go straight to goddamn arenas because the demand was that high. And we did that, and we did that well. And for us, it was just plug and play. For the blueprint, no pun, the name of our company. It was just Drake, here's your tour strategy, drop in. You know what I'm saying? Nicki, tour strategy, drop in. G-Eazy, because it was pretty much the same at that point. I mean, it's still to this day, what touring is. So now we can shift to strategy, how you do it, how you get into it, right? One of the great things that you guys have today as managers is you have technology, you have analytics. You could pull up your Instagram, Facebook, all these different social places to see where your fans are, And there's a couple different ways you could enter the touring space, right? There are traditional models where you could put on a show with a promoter paying you to come, Then there's other models where you could go book out a venue, and bet on yourself and rent the venue out and put on a show yourself, and you own the door and you make money like that, right? I think that any artist, as a manager, you should always encourage your artist to go do it and do it the right way. Sometimes the people that kind of help you navigate that process are called touring agents. It's their job to help you understand markets and what you can pull out of venue as far as guaranteed money, and help route it the right way so that you're saving money when it comes to routing, because that's the science of routing, right? If you're doing a tour, you want to make sure that you go home at the end of the day with the most money in your pocket. So you're traveling with people, you got your staff, you got, your DJ, you got to pay people to tour, and all that comes out whatever the guarantee is. So routing becomes strategy because you want to flow and go through cities to make sure you're making the most money. You're not paying a lot of money for flights or gas or whatever it is, whatever level you're on, but I think that you have to, as a manager, understand that you have to play hard ticket venues. I mean, that means real venues with box offices that you can sell real tickets, and understand that you want those places to be where everybody could come, being inclusive. Like hip hop is the biggest, it crosses all genres and all races right now. So you want to make sure that you're in great spaces. If you don't have an agent, if you can't get an agent, because usually what happens is, you got to have some type of traction for an agent to come find you. They're going to want to know what you have, ticket sales wise. If you don't have a hot song out, or you don't have the heat on you, but you need to get on the road and you need to get the start, and this is the goddamn beginning, you're probably not going to have an agent find you. So you got to develop that buzz for your artist. So that way of what I was getting at a little while ago, what I was talking about, where your analytics at. You have this many people streaming your song in these cities, right? Atlanta, South, wherever it is, right? So you take those analytics, I would say bet on yourself. You know what I'm saying? Bet on yourself, invest in yourself, even if it's a 100-person room, a 50-person room, right? Go rent out the venue, put on the show, use the means you have of advertising, your social media, you tapping into your fans, you talking to your fans. Like digital has made it easier to do this. And try to put a great marketing plan, which we've been talking about, and sell that thing out. Build buzz, and then have a track history. And then it's going to become a track history when you're going into real venues that's counting these tickets, right? And if you do that the right way and you continue to maximize on that, maybe that grows into a 200-person room, a 300-person room. Eventually you'll get to the point where you may have a top agent come to you and like, let me help you out and grow this. Or you may have a promoter like a Live Nation that might see that and want to invest in you, and it'll end up taking you to that top level. So let's jump into merch. Now, merch I always saw from the beginning, because I didn't take advantage of this early on, because I didn't know the value. Like I said, coming in the chitlin circuit, it wasn't like it was now. Merch became very popular. I mean, it became pop culture, right? And I saw it rise more just being in the apparel business when we kind of came in the apparel business with Truck Fit with Wayne at the end of the hip hop era and going into where kids were wearing a lot of tour merch and band merch. It kind of reemerged from what it was in the 80s and so on and so forth. So when I first started, it was something that was an afterthought. But when I started touring in major arenas, and with the help of the agents and the people that was around me that had done the business, it told me to really pay attention to this business. It became a necessity. It became a must. Because it's extra money that you could take out of a venue as you're touring. And now, with online presence, you could set up stores and so on and so forth and have drops in around music and around just around everything. If it's around the tours, around a song, you can have these drops and make a whole lot of extra money, like literally millions of dollars added to the pot, if you do it the right way. I think that the successful merch runs has been very creative and dope. And understanding, if you don't have it as a manager, bringing in a merch team that understands, what kids are buying into, may be able to get creative on different types of items, creative in bundling. Bundling is a great way to do things. Like, we use merch early on when CDs was here. We used the tour in order to sell album sales because we're bundling it together with a piece of merchandise so fans can come away with something tangible. Another element of that world where you can make tons of money is meet and greets. meet and greets as artists, your fans getting to really sit and tap into you, I've seen, and it's been very consistent, that as artists grow bigger and your audiences grow larger, it sometimes get tiring for artists to kind of be out there and get out there with thousands and thousands of people in city to city. But, it's definitely lucrative, and you could charge a premium for that. Mind you, you're getting to meet your artists hand in hand, and I try to organize it in a way when I organize meet and greets to make it as light for the artist and pleasurable for the consumer, the ticket buyer, So that's usually photo, and I have to be the bad guy to make sure to conversate, to make it keep moving so we can maximize the time and maximize the money. So it's another way you could pull a lot of money out of touring, have that in your strategy. When you're talking about ticket sales and putting the show up, always think about merch got to be there, because you could bundle tickets up with it and meet and greets, and you got these VIP experiences, so that should be the layers on how you pull the most out of touring. So when I was talking about bare minimum beginning, that's why I say managers, don't wait for anybody. Don't wait for a promoter to look for you. Don't wait for an agent to look for you. Sometimes you got to bet on yourself. Book a 100-person room if it's in your own city, and offer all these things. You know what I'm saying? The information is out there. The information is out there. Even though I'm telling you now, you can see other best strategies also how it's done well. But all these things, if you implement all those things into your thought process on how you tour, you should be very successful. Now let's talk about the experience, because there's a whole lot of stories on the road and how great it is. You as manager got to always be on your P's and Q's. There's a lot of people that can have a whole lot of fun, but, especially early on when you have all of these different jobs and responsibilities, you want to make sure that you are on point because there's all these things. There's meet and greets that got to go well. There's merch that got to get checked in the venue. Everybody got to move. This is before you get a road manager and a tour manager and all these things. Production manager, you might have to go. I'll have to go to the venue to sound check early, make sure the line checks was great, so that when the artist comes in, the mic's good and the sound's good in the room. All those things you have to do as a manager early on before you get the support team to line up. But even when you get the support team, I still was one, I'm there every venue. I'm there before the show, listening, looking at things. Where's the merch table set up at? Is it set up in a place where when the crowd go out, I don't want them to miss the merch table, as they're leaving. It got to be situated in a place where they have an eyes line of vision to where this table is set up. That's strategy. You want them to see it. You don't want to duck off somewhere where people can't see what you're trying to give them and upsell to them once you get them in this room. So all those things as a manager you have to think about, and it can be tiring. You're not getting any sleep. You're not getting any rest, and you still got to do the day-to-day stuff. While this tour is running, you're trying to milk the tour and get the most out of the tour. It's still these other things that you're doing as a manager to also pop your artists off. So although it could be fun going on a road, traveling, seeing different cities, which is amazing. And it's crazy. I tell people all the time, they ask me, yo, Taz, you've been all over the world. I was like, yes, but I really haven't saw the world. It literally, I might have went to Paris 5 different times before I saw the Eiffel Tower. And that was only because we had a day off in Amsterdam, and I took the train back to Paris just to see it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a grind, especially for the managerial role. You are the gatekeeper. I keep saying that. I keep using that word. You are the gatekeeper. You have to oversee everything to make sure everything flows. And touring is a space that you have to be on your P's and Q's, because the more successful you are touring could mean longevity for your artist. And when I'm talking about longevity, I'm talking about 50s and 60s and 70 years old, when they might be finished with music and they still could come out based off of what you started and you planted the seed early. You're setting your artists up to always make money for the rest of their life. When it comes to some of the ways you could enter these touring spots, especially let me give you an example with college, usually it's like the SGA or some type of events, people on campus, usually student driven. that you should probably tap into and find, And I think that you got to use the analytics that you have. If you got a song out and it's moving, and it's moving and in that area, then that's the schools you may want to target when I talk about using analytics. But if you don't, let's say you don't have a song, let's say you're not moving there and you want to try to create opportunity. So before you go to the college, maybe it's road tripping there, letting the artists hang out, do something cool on campus, you know what I'm saying, or in and around the city, or pop up, You just got to try to market yourself and get yourself out there. Bring the artist out there to let him show his personality. That could be different things, you know what I'm saying? My mind could go different ways what it could do. But as a manager, your job is to always just try to figure it out, to tap into those places, to get those people interested in your artist, But if you got the music out there, use what you have for as analytics to help you guide and decide, okay, I'm popular here. Maybe it's not the college campus. Maybe I don't get the buy-in from the college campus, but there's a venue that fits 100 people that's about 5 miles from the college, a ticketed venue that I'm gonna rent out and promote my own show. And then I'm gonna go promote to the college campus. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go promote to the college kids, And it could be that way. You could see similarities in your audience and in your artists, in your audience that you may think could be an opportunity. College campuses, college towns usually have performance venues. Even the smallest college towns, they usually have performance venues in there because it's a big market, So maybe it's just renting out the space on the college campus yourself. They have, that's possible too. People could rent out spaces on college campuses, and you could throw your own show on the campus. So you got to think outside the box, and you just got to do. You know what I'm saying? Don't wait. That's the biggest thing I could take from this. Is not wait, and always think about, when you're thinking about touring, real tickets that could be monitored, and going to venues where you could have track record, so it could help you grow. So one of the most important things about touring is a tour budget. The goal is to come home with the most money, but the most successful people that tour creates logical and great budgets, that's reasonable. You got to have some type of structure, even if you're just starting off. You got to pay the DJ, you got to pay, you got to pay for gas, maybe food for the per diems and food for the people that's on the road. Like, a structured budget keeps you in line and makes sure that you come home with money. If not, I've seen it in place, where artists that end up off a tour and wanting all these lavish things and wanting to stay in the presidential $15,000 suite. And when they come at the end of the tour and they look at the numbers and like, this is all I came home with, is because, you're not realistic within your budget. So budgeting and practicing that early, like practicing that very early on, is super important. And all that is taking what you're going to get out the pot, what's that guarantee for an artist, or if you're putting on a show yourself, how much you're going to take from it, and making sure that should help you make decisions on what your tour look like. That should help you make decisions on what kind of content you're putting on the screen. Are you going to have a screen this tour, or are you just going to go with the DJ and the banner based off of how much, that's how you tour. That's how you make money out of touring. Making money out of touring comes with budgeting successfully. When it comes to best practices on what to pay for and on tour, I think it's a case-by-case scenario, but it just needs to be understood. That's the most important thing. It just needs to be understood. You start off with what your top number is, what you're going to pull away from the tour, what's your budget. Once you start negotiating deals on a higher level, you start, with a promoter like a Live Nation, you start putting things in to help make them pay for production and things of that nature, right? Once you get to that level, you start in tour negotiations, you start to get the promoter to pay for things that you don't have to really pay for. But once you're starting, you got to put all those things in perspective, right? And sometimes a better show, some lights, some fog, a screen, maybe a band, may increase the performance, and you might make a sacrifice to take less money because you're banking on, if I create this great performance, then the next tour I put on is going to help me grow. So it's a case-by-case scenario, and it's budgeting. It starts and ends with the numbers, How much artists do you want to take home? How much you want to take home? From that, well, you can't have the band, This is how much you pulling out. You know what we got to have. You know what I'm saying? We got to pay a DJ at the least, right? You go with the necessities first that you have to have out of it, right? Commissions, all those things that come off the top, right? And then you have, okay, now we got this much to play with. After the necessities, right? We have this much to play with. Do I want to spend money on fog? Do I want a light show? If I want a light show, do I want to go extravagant, or do I want a screen? If I get a screen, then I got to pay a content person to create the content if I don't have that, right? So, those decisions should be made. All of it should fall hand in hand with the budget. And like I said, there's been times where we've sacrificed. I remember Kanye put that built that spaceship on stage. And when I say that was a headache for my partners, and how much money, this is early me, this is when we first partnered up, because we had Kanye and Wayne. And I saw that budget, and we wasn't touring yet like that, you know what I'm saying? But Sean G, my other partner, who's the architect of helping our artists tour, right? He was telling me about the budget. I was like, wait, how much does that cost? Wait, what? He was like, yeah, he taking the L, but his philosophy is he want to create the experience in this moment. He think it's going to transition into the music and the success. And mind you, tour did great, but and he was able to have a bestseller because he had books at the merch stand and made a lot of money off the merch on that tour. So I think it still was an L at the end of the day. But far as what Kanye mean off the aesthetic, off the brand, artistically, you could say he may have been planting a seed back then for him being able to make billions of dollars, $1 billion off of Yeezys by becoming that guy to be that artistic, creative person and planting that seed then where he might have had to sacrifice off tour to come to all these years later, over 10 years later, and he's able to be a culture driver and make $1 billion off of selling some sneakers and clothes.